Howdy, greetings, salutations, one and all. Welcome to another weekly edition of the Ultimate Hockey Show. Our apologies for not being on the air yesterday. I was feeling a bit under the weather, hence why we're doing this today. Red Petty is away one more week, so I'm proud to have Rob Somerville back for another week to talk hockey. Good evening, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. Just done some projects in the offing. Not too much which I can shed light on yet,
I was
but
going to say, when is it that you don't have something going on?
fair enough, fair enough. Pretty soon. Um, Actually, not true. Once the local hockey scene is done, I'll be shifting my attention over to the Stanley Cup playoffs. So welcome those of you tuning in on the Game Time TV YouTube channel, as well as other media platforms. The show is based out of Winnipeg, but is meant to be conversational about the NHL and other offerings. Now, since I have Rob here this week, I wouldn't be surprised if we get into some WHL postseason talk. WHL playoffs began this past weekend and are now headed into Game 3, including the Wheat Kings and the Lethbridge Hurricanes doing battle at Tundra Oil and Gas Place in Virden because of the Royal Manitoba Winter Fair occupying West Toba Place in Brandon. Rob, former Winnipeg Ice, Daniel Hauser missing the first two games of his series when the Calgary Hitmen are playing the Saskatoon Blades. The series will move over to Saskatoon for a pair starting tonight. But we'll get to that in just a little bit. The Winnipeg Jets are one hot hockey team right now. Since we had our discussion on Monday, we were concerned about a relapse in the Winnipeg Jets game. Well, Rob, for what seems to be the fifth or sixth time this year, the um, Winnipeg Jets have a perfect week, winning all of their games. Your thoughts on the Winnipeg Jets this week?
What else? What other superlatives that can you use? But fantastic, amazing, but just somewhat unbelievable. I mean, you'd have to figure at some point they were going to slip and fall down. But every time you think they've slipped on that banana peel, well, somehow they just managed to pull themselves back up and start winning again.
What do you make of that? Like we were talking, and I don't know which show it was that was talking about it. Memory escapes me, but it seems like the Winnipeg Jets had been hard done in on some long losing streaks as time has gone on, um, which has quite frankly derailed what seems to be, most of the second half of their seasons. This year, their longest losing streak is a pair of four gamers, no five or six gamers to this point. What do you make of which the um, consistency the Jets are playing with this year?
I'm still going to boil it down to the three C's that I've been using all along, which is cohesion, chemistry, and consistency.
Yeah.
They seem to be able to throw the same game through a photocopier, and the same thing comes out the other end, and it usually ends up in a winning result.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting the way that's gonna work. Um, but what do you make of that? Because it's interesting, right? Because we talked about, oh, the Winnipeg Jets didn't do much, this last off season. They didn't get a second line center supposedly. They didn't get a big defenseman. They didn't, they made two little changes for a team that's had two quick exits from the playoffs in recent years. But when I look at what a team like Nashville did this year, um, bringing in Stamkos, bringing in Marshall, bringing in, a defenseman on the back end, yet they didn't seem to form any type of chemistry until they were out of the playoffs. So maybe there is something to this cohesion, chemistry, and consistency that you're speaking of.
Well, it seems to me that if you have a team that's gelled together and stays together, that they're going to form a better bond, as opposed to having to bring in new pieces to trying to figure out where they're going to fit in.
I have a question that's kind of been, I don't know, poking at my heels, if you want to say that, before we talked about the individual games. The Winnipeg Jets were a very good team last year, but they had a mediocre penalty kill and a bottom of the pack power play. There's the consistency that if the Winnipeg Jets power play was in the top 10 last year and their penalty kill was a few stages higher, that perhaps they would have won the President's Trophy. Is it that simple that the power play and specialty teams has done 10 to 15% improvement, maybe more? And here's where we are, and maybe we all just didn't see it coming?
It's very much could be said to be true, but I mean, it also comes down to the fact of one very long word that they have been using from day one, and this goes back to Rick Bowness, is accountability. The Jets as a team have been accountable to themselves, to their teammates, and to the fans for the entire year. Last year, it didn't seem like that accountability was there as a seems to be there as visibly as it is this year.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, so yeah, it's just something coming in here. But no, yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I mean, Rick and I were together when the Rick Bowness hiring was made official, and you have to remember this was when Barry Trotz was available, whoever else was available that time of year.
Yeah.
There were some big names available, and the Winnipeg Jets just didn't seem to have any interest in them. And to be honest, I think Bowness was the sleeper name at the time, if that's the right word. He had just coached the Dallas Stars to a mere upset over the Calgary Flames. They lost in Game 7 overtime. Flames would go on to lose in the second round to the Oilers in the Battle of Alberta in the playoffs. But Rick Bowness, I think, deserves a lot of credit for having the foresight. That's not the right word, but you know what I'm trying to get at, right?
Foresight would be the right word, because he was seeing a lot of things in the players that they themselves weren't seeing, but because he brought that out to them, it made them realize that if they kept pursuing what he was telling them, that they were going to get to be where they are. And I mean, as we've bore witness last year and now into this year, Arnie Bowness's footprints or his fingerprints and his footprints are all over this team. I mean, he is probably, and Arniel said it himself, that he is indebted to Rick Bowness for everything that he showed him and that he taught him while he was under him.
Yep, for sure. And I'm not disputing anything you're saying, for sure. And I don't know, was it as simple as eliminating Blake Wheeler from the room? Was it as simple? I don't know how you go about changing a culture without some direct um, intervention, if you will. But as we saw, it was not necessarily a 1 year linear, uh, straight up process.
Absolutely not.
Because there were games where we'd see what we saw this year, and then they'd get away from it and revert to their, what Rennie likes to call, fire wagon hockey ways, and winning games, not necessarily playing the best. Do you feel that this is a continuation of sort of 3 years of what Rick Bowness has been able to kind of teach, 2 years of Bowness, and now almost a season of Arniel?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, Bonus's fingerprints are all over what this team is and what this team is all about. I mean, he's instilled he instilled confidence in them as a team 2 years ago, and it has been a process that has been worked on and being gelled over this past 2 years, and the fruits of his labor, and as well with Arniel being under his wing, have now come to fruition, and you're seeing the end results of it.
Oh, absolutely. And then how much do you think? And again, I don't wish, ill will on anybody. What Judy Bonus went through last year, I don't wish on anybody. But how much did it help that when Bonus was able to step away, we had Arniel, and it was kind of I don't want to say it was a seamless transition, but we got a bit of a preview of what a Scott Arniel run team could look like, maybe unintentionally. And to me, that also sort of set the stage for this year.
Agreed. And now at the same time, too, I mean, while Bonus was away, even while he was dealing with his own illness, plus with his wife, he was still keeping his finger on the pulse of what was going on in the city, regardless. Yeah. I mean, whether any of us want to admit it or not, I mean, he was. Arniel admitted himself that he was talking to Rick at least 5 and 6 times a day, if not more. And
yeah,
they probably have their pregame. They probably had their pregame powwows before every game, and kind of looking at things and saying, like, this is what I see from this team. And I mean, having Rick's eyes on the game from the outside was would have been a bonus for Arniel, because he'd be looking at things that Arniel might not even have thought of, and thusly it's having that extra set of eyes on anything like that is definitely going to help you.
Yeah, I can speak, and I know ball hockey and ice hockey aren't the same, but the amount of things that I'm able to bounce off of my assistant coaches and vice versa, they might be assistant coaches in name, but boy, do they pull a lot of weight.
Yeah. Oh, they do. You're darn right they do.
So, anyway, let's talk quickly because we want to run through these games here this week.
Sure.
The Washington Capitals game. This, to me, was the most impressive game of the week. I didn't agree or disagree, but I never. The last time Washington and Winnipeg played was February 1st, and they said, oh, that player wasn't available, this player wasn't available. It's not a true test because we're not quite in playoff form, that kind of stuff. To me, this game was perfectly placed on the schedule as far as after the trade deadline. Both teams to kind of see where they measure up against one another. To me, I think it was just the perfect place to play that type of game. Now, it's unfortunate that the Jets were minus Velarde and Pionk, but
it didn't seem to matter.
You play every game with whoever is wearing the jersey, and you hope to continue the best that you can.
Yeah.
To me, that was a really good game, if not another one of those best game of the year categories for the Winnipeg Jets.
Agreed. I mean, that to me, if that wasn't a true test of a playoff game and the top two teams in the entire league battling it out for supremacy, well, I don't know what game people were watching then.
Yeah. What did you make of it? Like, to me, I can't. Like, on paper, I was like, I don't know how Washington's doing it. They look very, the names don't look very household outside of Ovechkin. And then you watch them play, and their size, their physicality, you name it. And you see exactly why they're the number one team in the East. They're big, They're physical. They're nasty. They have four lines that can come at you in very different ways. Pierre-Luc Dubois um, fits right in there with the best of them there in Washington.
Yeah.
I can see why they're the number one team in the East and currently challenging the Jets for the President's Trophy very easily.
Very true. But the thing is, though, you could say the same thing. You could go down the Jets roster and look at their names and say, outside of Hellebuck and maybe Morrissey, and possibly Scheifele, who are the big names on our roster? I mean, to the Jets faithful, every name on our roster is a big name because they're all key contributors to every night's victory. But
Yeah.
to anybody outside of the city of Winnipeg and anybody that isn't an ardent fan of the team, most of them wouldn't know outside of Hellebuck, Morrissey, and Scheifele. Whom do you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of people were sleeping on the Winnipeg Jets. And listen, I think if the Winnipeg Jets had been to a second round and been to a conference final in the last 2 years, their perspective would be a lot different on the Winnipeg Jets. But because their playoffs have been less than one round, 5 games in the last, two playoffs, 10 in the last two playoffs put together, 2-8 in their last 10 playoff games.
And I mean, Hellebuck's
That really changes the perspective when it's a "what have you done for me lately" business.
it does, and not to mention Hellebuck's abysmal playoff record overall. It hasn't it hasn't been exactly glowing either.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Just receiving some news here, Rob. Per 3Down Nation, TSN executive Stuart Johnston is the top candidate to become CFL commissioner.
I saw that earlier on TSN.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
But the 3Down game starting very, very soon. But no, I mean that Winnipeg Jets game. Like, let's talk about this, right? Ovi gets the tying goal. Everybody thinks, oh, you're in trouble here. Washington's coming on, and then Nittawailer basically says, hold the phone with a nice overtime goal.
Hold my beer. Look out. Oh, that was in that goal. I mean, I still picture that replay in my mind every day.
Yeah,
he's coming up to the glass
old
afterwards.
He's doing the Superman strut right in front of the fan, soaking
soaking it in.
It looked like, honestly, Rob, it looked like one of those scenes at a WWE, right? Where the wrestlers just admiring the crowd going absolutely crazy.
Yep.
But anyway, the next game that was very interesting to me was the one right after. They won that game too.
That was New Jersey.
Against New Jersey on the Friday. And we were wondering about, at least I was, I don't know if you feel the same, but we were wondering about residual letdown after that highly emotional, highly competitive game against Washington. But quite honestly, the New Jersey Devils, it was like 2 minutes in, 2-0 Jets. Night. Thank you for coming.
Yep. Basically, I think the Devils folded their tents after they got down 2-0 because there was really only two or three high danger scoring chances during that entire game. One of which ended up being in a disallowed goal, thankfully. And just as Hellebuck said in his post-game comments afterwards, he said this was probably one of the easiest shutouts he's ever had in his entire career.
Yeah. Sorry here, hang on. I'm just yeah. No, it made sense. I mean, when you factor in like to me, everybody's saying, Connor Hellebuck's playing a lot. Connor Hellebuck's playing a lot. Um it might be true, but he's not being overworked to the point where he's standing on his head and winning a game a week, making 40 plus saves.
Nope. True enough.
So what did you make of that New Jersey game? Like, for me, it was interesting, right? Because Gustafson was in the lineup. Gustafson was in the lineup. He scores on his first shift. Just get the opening goal, 58 seconds in. It just seemed like whatever line changes that Coach Arniel was thinking about, that is basically whatever he touches turns to gold.
Exactly. And that is so true.
But again, time will tell the way that's going to end up. And then this last one here, Vancouver, to me,
That was a playoff game.
Tell me the Jets are a good team without telling me they're a good team if you're watching that game. Vancouver brought their best, I thought, but they were, I don't know what the word is. They were, sometimes when you bring your best and it's just not good enough because the other team is that much more powerful, that's what I thought it was.
Yeah. Even with Vancouver getting up 1-0 early, it still didn't phase them. They were just ready to strike back and wait. They waited for their chances and then they struck when they got them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting when that sort of comes to fruition. But again, I think that was a game, contrary to what other people say, that put the final nail in the Vancouver Canucks playoff hopes.
Yeah, I think. Well, I don't know if have they been officially eliminated or are they
They're
still there?
not mathematically. They're not mathematically. They're 1 point behind Calgary.
Right.
But it's the games in hand scenario that doesn't look good for them.
True.
I'm just gonna pull it up here quickly. Vancouver right now, 74 games played, 81 points. St. Louis and Minnesota, 75 games, 87 and 88 points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now there's a buzzsaw you don't want to run into right now in St. Louis. Holy.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Their goal differentials improved to plus 17. The team of it, I'm not sure. And I was asked this question on social media about a week ago. Who do I think the Winnipeg Jets will be playing? And I said Minnesota. Like, to me, I just like, I don't know how the Minnesota Wild are doing it. Like, they have a lot of injuries. Throughout the Kaprizov, Joel Eriksson, among others. But it just seems like they're win one, lose one, win one, lose one, win one, lose one. Their home record is 19-7-2. Their away record is 22-11-4. But yet it feels like, I don't know how you feel about this, but they're presently 6 points up on Calgary. Calgary has 2 games in hand, plus a head-to-head.
And this is Minnesota we're talking about, right?
Yeah, I don't feel like the Wild are home and cool by any stretch yet.
No. In fact, if anything, I actually thought they were slipping.
They were slipping. And the problem is, though, Calgary gave up, 2 points to Dallas last Thursday. They gave away another point to the Oilers and then pulled off that, to use Derek Will's words, miracle in Denver, or whatever he referred to it as, when they were down 2-0 and then they won
right.
3-2. in a shootout. The Mile High Miracle. That's what it was.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was just thinking of that.
Yeah, that's what it is. But credit to the Flames. They will not die. They are interesting to watch. They scrap, they fight, they claw. I don't know about you, but I had this as a lottery team when the season ended, or the season began, just because we didn't know with all these players that wanted in and out, and you're here and you're there and they're there. This team to me has they've defied logic from a standpoint of, I think they're a fine example of when you play hockey, when you play hockey for one another, what can be accomplished. Never mind what the pundits and the rest of the league says about you, and they seemingly rate you up before the punt is even dropped in October.
True.
But no, it's just interesting. So who do you think gets that last wild card spot?
Right now, I say it's Minnesota. What is it? Minnesota, St. Louis, and Calgary that are fighting for it.
Yeah, it's Vancouver is a point back, but they have one
Vancouver.
game, and then Calgary can pretty much put Utah away tonight if they beat them in extra time or in regulation. Pardon me.
Right.
It's very interesting. Very interesting. To be honest, I think the Blues are peaking too far, too close. I mean, 9 straight wins. They're peaking too early. What do you think the Vegas Golden Knights are thinking? Oh boy, we're gonna win the Pacific, and then you run into that buzzsaw.
Well, that goes for any team, and I mean, well, we're about to run into that buzzsaw come Monday.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not as much of a buzzsaw, and they will have lost on the weekend.
And throughout the rest of this week too, depending on how many games they have.
Yeah, they have a couple. They play tonight in Detroit. I'm just going to pull it up here while we're talking about it. Tonight they're home to Detroit. Pardon me. And then Thursday night they are home to Pittsburgh. Saturday they are home to Colorado, who they just beat on Saturday 2-1.
Well, they've got some interesting games coming up, and I mean, obviously, like teams like Colorado are going to be wanting to sharpen their claws up for the playoffs because.
Yeah, the interesting thing too is, and I don't know if you paid any attention to this, Rob. Minnesota's schedule is the Rangers at the New York Rangers, at the New York Islanders, and then on Sunday they are home to Dallas. So that's the next 3 games for them.
Interesting games.
So you still think it's Minnesota that gets in?
Well, it's tough to say. I mean, it could be any one of those 4 teams that gets in there. Yeah. Depending on what they do. Like, it depends on their strength of schedule for the next few games.
First off, let me ask you this. Do you think the Winnipeg Jets finish first in the Central?
Yes.
Despite Dallas being 4 points back in the schedule this week?
Well, as I've said to you before, and I think I'll just say it to you again, the Jets are in control of their own destiny.
Yep.
They have all they're trying to do right now is make sure that they keep winning. And then whatever happens with Dallas and Colorado and Vegas and wherever else is chasing them in the Pacific, well, that's up to them. I don't think the Jets are too worried about what's going on with other teams. I mean, yes, I'm sure they are, but I'm sure it's not paramount to them. That they're more worried about worried about what's going on their own sheet of ice that they're dealing with the games that they're playing.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point, Rob. You can't worry about who you're playing, just how you're playing in that moment. And that leads me sort of to I have no other way to phrase this, but the snail's pace that is going on in the East. And I've been trying to figure this out for a while now. I think Ottawa is home and clear as wildcard number 1, 84 points to 77, 6-point difference right now.
Right.
But between Montreal, the Rangers, Columbus, and Detroit, and maybe the Islanders to an extent, I can't see who wants this playoff spot, if anybody, among the 5 teams that I just mentioned.
That's like a dog. That sounds like a dog's breakfast. It doesn't. It's like it's whoever's going to want it the most. And
it's interesting because I think the team that's in the most trouble, despite being tied for the last playoff spot right now, is the Rangers. Only because they played more games than anybody in this schmozzle. Columbus tonight, they're at home to somebody tonight. Here, I'm just going to pull it up. They've had a bit of a slide of late. They're home to Nashville tonight in a game that starts in about 20 minutes. Is this Montreal's spot to lose?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, Montreal definitely wants to be there because they want to be one of 5 or 6 teams, 6 of the 7 teams that make it to the playoffs in Canada.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting.
I mean, I mean, I don't know if this is possible or probable. I mean, I think it's Vancouver. I think you've said now that you think Vancouver has pretty much had it as far as Canadian teams being in. I was hoping this year that we might see all 7 of them qualify, but I'd say 5 out of 7 is the likelihood.
Yeah. I mean, to see what Montreal did to Florida there on Sunday afternoon. Now they play again tonight in Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine what that atmosphere is going to be like at Bell Center. But this is not even the biggest game of the week for the Florida Panthers. They got a big game tomorrow at Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, where the Leafs are looking to take a stranglehold on that division if Montreal can take care of business tonight and the Leafs take care of business tomorrow.
And if memory serves me right, Toronto hasn't even punched their ticket into the playoffs yet.
Not yet. They're very close. The only teams that have clinched, I'm just going to pull this up here right now. Only teams that have clinched are the Washington Capitals, Dallas Stars, and Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's what I thought. It was just the 3 of them.
On the doorstep are the Vegas Golden Knights, and then the Leafs, Panthers, and Lightning are kind of on the doorstep.
Right.
They're close. Same with the Senators.
Right.
My guess is we'll have 4 or 5 spots, so we're not more before Rich and I get back together next week. Actually, I'm just going to look. Are there any clinching scenarios for tonight? I haven't even looked. Hold on. Yeah, I don't see any clinching opportunities tonight. Oh well, it'll happen soon enough.
Yeah.
Interesting part today with the NHL. Ryan Leonard will make his NHL debut from college after being eliminated. Jimmy Snuggerud will also make his NHL debut with the St. Louis Blues. And Brady Tkachuk is out of the Sens lineup tonight with an upper body injury. Charlie McAvoy was in a regular jersey. Tomas Hertl is out this week for the Vegas Golden Knights after suffering an injury Um, and I'm just seeing some reports here out of Vancouver. It looks like Philip Hedl might be done for the season,
Right.
according to Red Tot.
Uh-huh.
It's very interesting how that's going to work. And then, of course, Ovechkin's record. Never mind. I just found the email that I'm looking for here. Sorry about that. There are clinching scenarios. There are lots of them. You ready for these?
Sure.
The Carolina Hurricanes will clinch a playoff spot if either of the following occurs. The Montreal Canadiens lose to the Florida Panthers in any fashion. The Columbus Blue Jackets lose to the Nashville Predators in any fashion. The Montreal Canadiens lose to Florida in any fashion, or Columbus loses in any fashion to Nashville. That'll get Carolina a spot.
Right.
The Leafs will clinch a playoff spot if the Canadiens lose to the Panthers in any fashion, the Blue Jackets lose to the Predators in any fashion. So, translation, if Nashville wins and Florida wins, Carolina and Toronto are in the playoffs.
Right.
The Tampa Bay Lightning will clinch a playoff berth if they defeat the New York Islanders in any fashion. And both of the following occur, while the same as what I just read. The Canadiens lose to the Panthers in regulation. The Blue Jackets lose to the Predators in regulation. The Florida Panthers will clinch a playoff spot if they defeat the Canadiens in regulation, and the Blue Jackets lose to the Predators in regulation. So basically, all of the Atlanta teams can clinch a playoff spot tonight if certain things happen. The Vegas Golden Knights will clinch a playoff spot if they defeat the Edmonton Oilers in any fashion, or if they get 1 point against the Islanders, and either of the following occurs. The Calgary Flames lose to the Utah Hockey Club in any fashion. The St. Louis Blues lose to the Detroit Red Wings in regulation, or if the Flames lose to Utah in regulation. So, lots of golden tickets on the line tonight. What do you make of that?
Again, just like I said before about the way the wild card sums up in the West, it sounds like a dog's breakfast of combinations and permutations that could happen, and how many of them come to fruition at the end of the night will be interesting.
Yeah, if the playoffs started today, the matchups would be the Toronto Maple Leafs in first place in the Atlantic to wildcard one, the Ottawa Senators. Tampa would play Florida. Washington would play Montreal. Carolina would play New Jersey. Vegas would play Minnesota. LA would play Edmonton. The Jets would play St. Louis. Dallas would play Colorado. Which of those matches entices you most?
Oh, I think the war between Colorado and Dallas is the one that intrigues me the most.
Yeah.
Simply because you're gonna have oh, now I've lost his name. The guy that was traded. Huh? Rantanen. Yeah, Rantanen's gonna want his revenge from Colorado having to release him because he was gonna cost them too much money.
Yeah, talked about public enemy number one, eh?
Oh, absolutely. Well, yeah. And I mean that's the thing we have to watch for is just simply because that series, the winner of that series is likely who our second round opponent will be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, right? And that's assuming the Jets hold off Dallas.
Any one of the teams that they're going to possibly face.
Yeah. The thing that worries me about the Jets not finishing first is just the softness of Dallas's schedule here going forward.
Agreed.
But listen, I think it's good for the Jets to have meaningful games down the stretch. I really do. It keeps you sharp. I don't think you're in the right frame of mind right now to rest people, and that might be the best.
True.
I actually, truthfully, Rob, I think it's Winnipeg and Dallas bringing out the best in one another.
Absolutely. And we're going to see that. We're going to see another example of that in 9 days from now, too.
Yep, yep. That's Thursday, a week Thursday. Um, Other interesting note for hockey here: Ovi is 5 goals away from beating the record set by Wayne Gretzky. He's in action tonight against the Boston Bruins. So this is a fairly significant night as far as NHL hockey goes. Uh, my poor TV didn't get a workout tonight.
Oh, mine too.
um, um, but do you think Ovi breaks the record this year?
I mean, he's got the right games to do it in. It's just a question of whether or not. And I mean, obviously, the boys are going to be wanting to feed him as much as they can to see him, if nothing else, at least tie Gretzky, and get to beat him. I mean, but they also, by that same token, they can't let that overshadow them and end up losing games because they're trying too hard to do it.
Yeah, that's the part. You just hit the part that makes it very interesting for me. Do they spend so much time feeding them the puck that they just, what's the best way to say it? That they forget that they're playing hockey.
Well, and I can assimilate that to the same thing that Hellebuck said about when he was asked about a week ago about all the statistics that he's chasing. He says to
Yeah,
me right now, he says the only stat that I'm chasing is making sure that my team's on the winning side of the ledger every night.
yeah.
And that's
Listen,
as simple as you want to put it.
yeah, as somebody that has been involved, not necessarily unintentionally, with records and records being broken,
Right.
you'd almost rather not have to worry about it and just go out and play. And then when it happens, it happens. But it's such a significant record that I don't even think he can go down the street without being asked about it.
Agreed. No, but I mean, at the same time, though, he's also, to him, that kind of thing isn't where he's not worrying about his own. He's not worrying about his own personal accolades and things like that. He's more worried about getting the Jets win number 53 and another 2 points in the bank.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not even disputing that. To the Washington Capitals are 0-2-1 in their last three. They've fallen off a little bit.
Yeah.
Their team defense is a little bit lapsed.
But I mean, I'm even just talking about within the Central. Just he wants to, because he knows that the Stars are breathing right down the Jets' neck. They're right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, 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 and even what do we call it? Um, yeah, the pressure of even holding off first in the East. You wonder what Washington has to play for, which isn't much.
True.
So,
But that's the thing, is that they have to play. They like it's just it's like I was when I listened, like, as I'm sure you do too. Listen to Kenny and Rennie the other night,
yeah,
and Kenny said himself that he said the Jets, the thing that the Jets have to worry about is what they have on the schedule in front of them. He says whatever happens with Dallas and Colorado and Washington et al. He says that's up to them.
yeah, yeah. No, you're not. You're not.
He
So you're not
wants
wrong. You're not
and
wrong
that's
there.
why I said what I said about Hellebuck, is the fact that he's not worried about any of the personal stats that he has and that he might have that are within his grasp. He's not worried about that. He's worried about the fact that as long as he can keep the boys winning, then he's gonna. It just brings it brings him closer to what he's after, but it's not something that he's necessarily striving for. I mean, if he gets it, it's kind of like the way I describe things to you with regards to the way the Jets are chasing after the President's Trophy.
Mhm.
They have two clear goals right now. One's to win the Central. The second is to win the West. If they happen to win the President's Trophy along the way, that's an added bonus, and that's an added feather in their cap.
Here's the part that irritates me a little bit, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Discussion about President's Trophy curse.
Right.
So what? It's a 1 in 16 shot that the President's Trophy team has a chance to win the Stanley Cup.
Agreed.
More than likely, it's going to be the field over the President's Trophy team that's at a 1 in 16 shot at winning the whole thing. Why the heck is that a President's Trophy curse?
Well, it's just because everybody puts so much pressure on the fact of finishing first. Like that's to them, that's the big carrot. I mean, the fact is, the president's trophy. I can't remember. I think there was a stat that said that a president's trophy team hasn't won the Stanley Cup in 16 or 17 years.
Yeah, well, yeah. But I again, like my argument is that's one team out of a 16 team field. That's like picking one out of 16. That's like putting names in a hat and saying
Yeah,
pull out the one that's,
yeah.
chance the odds of pulling out number one out of a jar if it's got 1 to 16 in it, not great.
Agreed.
But I don't know. To me that whole thing's overblown.
Yeah.
To me, that whole thing's overblown. I just want the Jets to get home ice in round number one. Then as you said, win the division, and then win the
If they win the division and the conference are their main goals, if the president's trophy falls into their lap along the way, it's a bonus.
I can't help but feel like this is 2018 all over again. First round matchup with the Minnesota Wild, two Central teams battling for the top two spots in the NHL. I just hope that the result of a Game 7 doesn't change.
Absolutely.
I think this is as good a chance as any. No disrespect to the 2018 team.
Nope.
That the Winnipeg Jets are going to have to win a Stanley Cup. What intrigued you about this week, LA, Vegas, Utah? Like, to me, this is an extremely difficult schedule, but it's good to have difficult games down the stretch to see what this team is made of.
Well, it keeps your team. Well, for one, it'll keep your team sharp.
Yeah.
Because you're playing three really good teams. You're not playing Chicago and I mean, you just name three the three schmuck teams in the NHL. You're not playing them.
Chicago, San Jose, all those types.
Right. You're not playing the schmucks. You're playing teams that still have. I mean, well, actually, Utah got eliminated. I believe Utah got eliminated the other night, or is very close to being eliminated.
Yeah, Calgary can put the finishing touches on them.
Right, but I'm just like, whereas like with us right now, we're playing three teams that two teams for sure that still have legitimate chances of getting getting in that are in the playoffs and pose imminent threat to the Jets.
Yeah. It's very interesting. The way that's gonna shake down. How do you see it tonight? I think it'll be a low-scoring game tonight.
3-2. I see 3-2 or 4-3 final in the Jets' favor in regulation.
I'm going 3-1 Jets, empty netter.
Now I don't know if you saw this as well. The Jets called up Chris Driedger from the Moose.
Yeah, Eric Comrie's wife
is on baby watch right now. I don't know if his wife's if they've had their baby yet or not. Kapari is still in concussion protocol, so he's out tonight.
And then Luke Schen's game time decision.
Right. Now I was going to ask you about that because I thought when I read it, I thought given it's April 1st, I thought, okay, well, maybe that's a prank, but apparently something happened to him at their morning skate this morning or something happened. I don't know what, but.
Yeah, he left the state early. That's all I heard about that. But again, who knows? Everybody's playing with something nowadays. I don't
And
think
if
you're
you're
going to get
and
any.
if you're not really playing.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get truth serum out of anybody.
No,
Just with regards to who's playing with what, right?
exactly.
Um, yeah. Anyway, Rob, I almost called you Rick. You have any closing thoughts?
No, I'm just looking forward to tonight's game, Thursdays, and then I guess their weekend game against Utah to see what they come up with. And I am going to try. I want to very much go. I want to go to the game next Monday against St. Louis.
Yeah, that's a game on Amazon. I was thinking much the same way.
Yeah.
Too bad that Dallas game isn't here.
Oh, that. I mean, you could probably hold that if that game was in Winnipeg, you might have to hold it at Princess Auto.
Yeah, yeah,
because they might want to have 30,000 fans
yeah.
in the stands cheering them on. Maybe that's what they should do, is they should put a sheet of ice on the field at Princess Auto and
Why not? There's still a little bit of snow here.
play the game outdoors.
Oh, trust me, the Winnipeg Jets will did a Heritage Classic or a Stadium Series game before long if they keep playing like this.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
Uh-huh.
I'd love to see Jets Oilers outside, Jets Canucks outside, Jets Leafs outside. Anything
I'd
like
like.
that.
How about Jets Vegas? That would be a good
man.
one outdoors.
Yeah, with all the Manitoba
Or
connections.
Dallas. Jets Dallas outside.
Jets Wild. That would be like my top.
Yeah. The war to end all wars.
Yeah, or you play that game at US Bank Stadium, either or.
Yep.
But anyway, Rob, that's all the time we got for today. Thank you so much for sitting in the last 2 weeks.
Absolutely. Anytime. I mean, I'd even come back next week if you want to do a triumvirate and have the three of us here, if that's possible.
We'll look into that for sure, Rob. Appreciate it. You didn't crash the car. Rick gave you the fill-in key, then you kept it right on the road, which is good. Tongue in cheek, of course.
Yeah, of course. No, I know.
While I have you, I forgot to mention this. Have you been keeping track of the WHL playoffs at all?
Vaguely, yes. And I mean, I know that Brandon is in tough against Lethbridge and the other series. I've kind of glanced at them. I was gonna buy a CHL playoff pass, and I haven't yet. But I looked at my finances today, and I think I can afford it.
Well, I don't know if you got the news. WHL streaming free on Victory Plus.
On Victory Plus.
Yep, just download the app and enjoy.
Okay, I will do that.
So, yep. Okay, I'll let you go, and we'll see you when I see you. And we'll see everybody else. We'll see everybody else next week. On behalf of Rob Somerville, this is Michael Del saying thank you so much for watching, and we'll say good night from Winnipeg.